Hello guys, welcome to our key ethics keyword series, and today we are going to take up one of the most important values in public administration or in public service, that is your transparency. Again, this is not about definitions and quotes. It is a 360-degree understanding of that particular term, so that whatever UPSC asks questions, right, you write not only well, but you write different, so that if your marks is stuck at 85, 90, 95, it acts as a marks differentiator because it will help you to move past 115, 120. Okay, now let's understand transparency. Let's see how it is defined. So transparency means openness. Now this is very important. In Nolan, principle, 7 principles it has, the term openness is present, right? Transparency is not mentioned. Openness is mentioned, which is as good as transparency. Transparency means openness in government functions, making information, this is very important, making information on laws, policies, budget decisions and actions freely available, right? Now this is the core understanding, that the information should be made freely available. It should, the process should not be difficult, it should not entail cost, right? Because the moment information is made available, freely available, what happens is that you are ensuring that particular organization is functioning in a transparent manner. The best quote that was given by C.Y. Chandrachud said that, and he was quoting another judge from US. He said that when he was asked the question that why are we opening or why are we live streaming, the court functioning, he said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. He said sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? So sunlight here means like you have to be transparent, right? It has to be transparent, right? And the second ARC says what? The second ARC identifies transparency, accountability, predictability and participation. Again, remember these as a 4 essential elements defining quality of governance. So among your accountability, predictability and your participation, which is another most important value, that is your transparency, right? Now we are discussing a value with regards to public administration, and what end goal we have always discussed in such cases, ensuring public trust in the administration, right? Public trust and democratic legitimacy. So this is the end goal. Now let's see how transparency helps to reach that end goal. The first is access to information, right? Access to information starts like beginnings access to information. Transparency in governance, like open records, disclosures, RTI Act of 2005. If you've we'll be studying today also RTI. So access to information, transparency in governance. Then what happens is your public awareness and citizen participation. The moment information comes out, right? For example, Epstein file in US, right? When Epstein file came out, right? So Epstein file comes out how? Epstein file comes out when the Congress says that no, we have to make the Epstein file public, right? So information comes out. The moment information comes out in the public, then public are aware. Until unless I get the information, how will I be aware of things, right? I am aware, and because I am aware, I will participate. Right? And how do I participate? I participate by scrutinizing. I participate in scrutinizing. For example, when Epstein file came out, which are the names that were in the list? We had names like Bill Gates, right? We had even some of the Indian names were there, right? So again, scrutinizing, and again, media, which plays a role of what? It plays a role of the 4th pillar in the democracy. Now it is a bit questionable, but again, it plays a role of the 4th pillar, how it questions the government, it questions the authority, right? Scrutiny by the citizens, media and institutions, right? The moment you do scrutiny, the moment it is the information is in the public and we are scrutinizing, what happens? If there is a corruption, if there is an corruption or foul play, it will be coming out. So detection of corruption and misuse and efficiency, whatever it is, like in case of in case of Epstein file, it was deeply rooted a system of trafficking, right? And then so till this here, it is very important, like here your transparency plays a role of what? Bringing out if there is a problem in the institution. Now, once that comes out, as we have discussed, transparency and accountability goes together. Then what comes is answerability of public official, right? Answerability of public official. Before accountability, it is answerability, right? Accountability inherently has answerability there, right? So answerability comes after when the policies or when the corruption comes to the light, right? So it comes answerability of the public officials, and then comes your accountability mechanism. So for that, we have institutions like CAG, we have institutions like Lokpal, Lokayukts, right? We have social audit systems, right? So we have courts also, right? So they ensure accountability by, like, how do you ensure accountability? By punishing the public official, by demoting the public official, by suspending that public official, right? Or even to a degree, even imprisoning that public official. So this is the, like, those corrective actions, responsibility fixation, right? So I have fixed the responsibility, now you have to bear the burden of the crime that you have committed, right? And the moment this corruption is rooted out, right? When the responsibility is fixed and corrective measures have been taken, then what happens? Then we finally go where? We go to good governance. This is the the journey of good governance. Good governance does not simply mean that I'm delivering good service, right? Good governance does not mean that every month like 2,500 rupees is deposited to the women's account. Good governance, like, these are good governance, these are elements of good governance, but real good governance means what? Real good governance means that it plays a corrective the governance, the government itself, the public administration itself, right? It self-heals, right? It self-heals. The self-healing process happens only when you know that there is some problem, right? When information goes out in the public, you scrutinize, you diagnose, you hold up somebody responsible, and then you take corrective measures. That is the element, like, you self-heal, right? That is part of good governance. And once that is done, when you have ensured good governance, what it does, the final goal of public administration is what? Public trust and strengthening democracy, right? Democratic legitimacy, or strengthening democratic legitimacy. Okay, now let's understand information sharing and transparency, right? So we have discussed transparency, and let's understand information sharing. So information is the master key of participatory democracy, right? Enabling citizens to scrutinize governance and claim entitlements. Now, this is very important. Like, in case of participatory democracy, the functioning word is participation, right? You can only participate in a democracy when you know about things, right? How do you know about things? By coming across the information. And whose responsibility is to give you the information? It's the state's responsibility, right? So here, information is a master key. It is the master key in the sense, until and unless this key is there, you cannot lock the phenomenon called your participatory democracy, right? Information is the master key of participatory democracy, enabling citizens to scrutinize governance and claim entitlements, right? Scrutinize governance, like we have seen, right? We have seen that from how the government is opening up or sharing information, to scrutinizing, to media taking responsibility, or media taking, raising these questions, the governance taking responsibilities, and finally it leads to good governance, and hence, and finally it leads to what? It leads to strengthening the legitimacy of the democracy, right? Okay, let's understand the judicial genesis of right to information. Now, we will discuss two such important cases. One will be your 1975 case, State of UP versus Raj Narayan, which says that, citizens have the right to know about the Public Act, right? The Supreme Court held that the right to know of public act of government with secrecy limited to public security. It just is limited to public security. So, otherwise, the public should know about Government Act. The second, another very important, is your SP Gupta case of 1982, which linked open government with Article 19(1), your subclause A, which says that until and unless we get information, right, we cannot exercise what? We cannot exercise Article 19(1)A, right? All citizens shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, right? We will have the right to, of freedom of speech and expression only when we have information. So these are the two pillars, or rather these are the two important landmark judgments laid down the constitutional foundation of the right to information, recognizing transparency and accountability as an essential to democracy. Now let's come to and let's understand the RTI Act of 2005. Now we will not go into the details of it, because with regards to ethics, primarily 3 sections are important, right? When it is in second paper, then entirety of RTI is important. 3 sections are important, and we'll understand those 3 sections. The first section is your section 4, which talks about what? It talks about proactive disclosure. Now this is very important. What does proactive disclosure means? Proactive disclosure means that the government or the department, the information should, it's not like that the public should always go and ask for the information, right? The government should make sure that it proactively, right, it proactively discloses information. So section 4 says that, right? So public authorities must systematically publish and digitize information for easy access. Information for all, always accessible. Information for all, always it is accessible. But obviously we know that there are certain cases where information cannot be shared. Security is one of them. For that we have a provision. For that we have section 8, exemptions. So in that, it is again very important. It says exemptions are limited and information may still be disclosed if larger public, if larger public interests justifies it. Larger public interest justifies it, right? So again, here section 8 says what? Secrecy is an exception, disclosure is the norm. Secrecy is an exception, disclosure is a norm. And last but not least, section 22, we will say section 22, which is overriding effect. It says that RTI overrides Official Secrets Act of 1923 and conflicting laws on information access, right? RTI overrides. Let's just see how important it is, right? So it overrides. So again, RTI it has a larger ambit, right? Here the diagram is incorrect, so it will be like this, right? It will be like this, right? So RTI has a overriding effect, right? Okay, now let's understand how transparency has played, has impacted the governance system, right? The first impact I would say is that the number of filing is immense. Like 13 million RTI has been filed, right? And in 2015-16 data, which is a very concrete data, shows that 94% of the central ministries have submitted RTI compliance report, right? So this shows what? It shows that there is a growing institutionalization. There is a growing institutionalization of transparency, right? Growing institutionalization of transparency, right? Then what we have seen, the CAG report. CAG reports are also a mechanism of transparency, right? CAG conducts audits and that particular information is given to the public, and when it comes to the public takes action. Remember the flow chart, right? The flow chart from access of information to ensuring public trust, legitimacy in democracy, right? So again, it showed that in 2023 defense procurement, 26,000, like there was a kind of a scam or irregularity on 26,000, right? Again, this particular information came out because it was made accessible by whom? By CAG. Then parliamentary oversight committees, right? Parliamentary oversight committees, again, it is critiquing the process of transparency, that many RTI officials are not, so CIC officials are not, information commissions officials are not being appointed, like weak enforcement, right? Very delayed RTI replies, right? Again, but still we know that the information is coming out, right? Informations are coming out that RTI is not functioning well. RTI is not functioning well. This information has come out because of whom? Because of your parliamentary oversight, right? Last but not least, let's see some of the case studies where, information, because of release of information, it has played a major positive role in what? In administration. The first example would be social audits in Andhra Pradesh uncovered nearly 2,000 crore irregularity in Manrega. Remember, we were discussing Manrega, right? So in Andhra also, like 2,000 rupees, 2,000 crore irregularity came out because of social audit that was done. Then RTI activism in Maharashtra reduced leakages in PDS and wage delivery system, right? We know that the information comes out, right? Proactive, display of proactively a department or a ministry is responsible to disclose information. But then there are ways also where information has to come out when deliberately that particular institution is holding back information on corruption, on irregularities, right? So for that, we have discussed, for that we have a law called Whistleblowers Act of 2014, right? But we have to understand the ethics of the governance or the ethics of the infrastructure of governance will be maintained only when? It will be maintained only when we make sure that the protection is given to whistleblowers, because whistleblowers function as what? Whistleblowers function as a conduit. Now, this is very important. Whistleblowers function as a conduit of information, right? Conduit. It functions as a conduit of information, because those information which is not likely to come out of a particular organization, right? Because it is like deeply like corrupt or irregular, right? It will not come out. Otherwise, if somebody has taken up this moral, conviction, courage of conviction we have discussed, right, and want to share it with the public. So it's a conduit of information, and for that, obviously, that particular person faces threat, faces uncertainties, and for that we have to make sure that he's given proper or she's given proper protection, right? For that we have to create an ethical infrastructure around it. Unfortunately, we don't have it. What kind of measure we can take? We can take some of the measures, for example, expanding the horizon of Whistleblowers Act, right? We expand comprehensive legal framework, we expand or strengthen and effectively implement the Whistleblowers Act. Then anonymity and confidentiality, like this is the heart of whistleblowers, right? Whistleblowers Act, that like his or her particular name is or identity is confidential, and when he or she is sharing the information, it is done in an anonymous manner, right? So again, it is very important. So ensure secure anonymous disclosure and strict protection of whistleblowers. Then we have protection from victimization. So that safeguards, like you provide safeguards to the whistleblowers. Like once he has let go of the information, or he has has shared the information with the public, the institution should not be vindictive and throw him out, or engage in other unethical activity, right? So for that, that particular person needs protection, right? So protection from victimization. And last but not least is criminalize retaliation. Now, if there is, like, if it's not protected, if there is a retaliation with regards to, like, letting him go, or threat to his life, then there should be, like, it should be what? It should be criminalized. Any retaliatory action should be criminalized, right? Now, let's understand some of the challenges and limitations of transparency in general, and RTI in particular. The first is that exemptions and secrecy culture. Like, this is a major thing, right? You have your Section 8, broad misuse of Section 8, right? Exemptions like national security and commercial confidence, like it is primarily used to hold back information. Then you have poorly trained, officials, capacity and compliance deficit, like poorly trained PIOs, and largely CICs and SIC has backlogs, right? They don't have proper workforce, like the budgetary allocation is much less, right? So again, poor compliance deficit and poor capacity. Then we have weak enforcement and mechanism. Section 20 institute penalties. Like these penalties are rarely being instituted, number one. And second, most importantly, like the politically, the enforcement often depends on political will. So the political will is not to punish, obviously they will side with the department and the ministry, right? So it depends on the political will, and of course which ministry or which minister would want his own department or ministry to get punished, right? Then we have poor records and management loopholes, like so first of all, the records are not maintained correctly, they are not digitized, right? Then like Section 4 of RTA says what? The proper digitization has to be done. It's not that. Then there are some quasi-government bodies which escape RTA. So this is again a loophole. Then we have threat and misuse. Of course, like we have seen many RTA activists have been killed, right? Many RTA activists have been killed because they are asking the right question, which does what? Which again corrupts or which hinders or which pulls back the action towards RTI, right? Which hinders RTI, right? Right. Okay, now let's see that what UPSC has asked on transparency. Now this question came in 2021. An independent and empowered social audit mechanism is an absolute must in every sphere of public service, including the judiciary, to ensure performance, accountability, and ethical conduct. Elaborate. Now, this question has to be divided into sections. First of all, you have to discuss, a social audit mechanism with regards to public service. So, majority of the answer should be there, and then you have to categorically talk about social audit and judiciary, because there is no social audit in judiciary. We have it in Manrega, right? We have it in land transfers, right? But we don't have it in judiciary. So we have to talk about that also. Like, how can we institute social audit in order to make judiciary more transparent, right? Then in 2022, it has asked this question: whistleblower who reports corruption and illegal activities, wrongdoing and misconduct to the concerned authorities run the risk of being exposed to grave danger, physical harm and victimization by vested interest. What policy measure would you suggest to strengthen protection mechanism to safeguard the whistleblower? We have discussed at length, like what protection we should be taking, right? First of all, like make sure that there is no retaliation, right? First amend 2014 Act to make it more comprehensive, right? More lethal towards those who who work against transparency, right? Again, ensuring that retaliatory measures does not take place.
We are all forced to confront a difficult truth. Our government doesn't care about our privacy, our freedoms, or basic constitutional rights. Traditionally, we've expected the press to fill the role of watchdog, but partisan bickering and agenda-driven coverage has rendered the mainstream media unreliable at best. Whistleblowers are a crucial defense against the abuse of power.
And the things that have accelerated in the wake of this reporting makes us safer, and it must never be weakened.
That's why individual actions from the Snowdens of the world is so important. We need more Americans with the courage of Edward Snowden to hold government accountable and safeguard the freedoms we all take.